10 years ago, if you had to go and look at 15 or 20 houses to make a decision,
Right.
how can we cut it down to 3? We no longer are looking at sort of pigeonholing a user. I would like to believe all PropTech players will ultimately get to a place where we are experimenting more and more with natural language processing search. It's a difficult process for you if you have a very specific need. I said 3D visualization, natural language processing search, customer support, personalization of output for consumers. I think these are some areas that are going to get a substantial leg up because of AI.
Hello and a warm welcome to a very special podcast series, Unusual Suspects. I'm your host, Gaurav Choudhury. This is a series about unraveling stories of entrepreneurs, professionals, philanthropists, investors who are disruptors, yet not in your face. Their disruptions have consistently delivered on the purpose they've embarked on. While they're relentless and ruthless in pursuing their ambition, yet they're known for being leaders, for creating an ecosystem of believers who consistently push the boundaries. In each episode, I speak to one such leader, talking to her or him or them about their businesses, lives, inspirations, turning points, pivot moments, and of course, the little joys of life and work. It is as much about their personal life stories as about their professional, entrepreneurial, and philanthropic journeys. Unusual Suspect streams on Earshot.in, Spotify.com, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, YouTube, the YouTube channel of moneycontrol.com, and a host of other podcast streaming platforms and directories. On this episode, I have with me Praveen Sharma, CEO of REA India, that owns housing.com. Praveen has had a distinguished career as a business professional across multiple industries. He has had experience in building and scaling customer-centric businesses bottoms up, grounds up, at massive scale. He built a Paytm ads business ground up, transforming it into a highly profitable business. He was also the MD of Paytm Payments, steering one of India's key online payment aggregators. Before REA India, he has had significant leadership positions in Google, both in India and Singapore. Leading up to Google, he has held very senior positions in key media organizations such as Group M, Madison, and Initiative Media. Welcome to the show, Praveen. Delighted to have you here.
Thank you, Gaurav. Thank you for the warm introduction.
Praveen, let's start with something that is we are still feeling the after effects, the very positive after effects of it. The festive season is just behind us. And this is also the busy season so far as consumer spending is concerned and household spending is concerned. One of the key decisions that households take is during their lifetime, mostly in India, is to buy a house. It's an emotional decision, it's a financial decision, and now it's increasingly becoming a technological decision, which we'll come to later. But how has the festive season been this time around? What's the evidence that you're picking up, Praveen?
Thank you. Yeah, that's a good question. As you would know and expect, the festive season obviously converges a lot of decision making for households. Home buying is really a fairly long purchase window, so people start thinking about buying a house long before they actually buy one. What we typically see is that the interests start 6 to 8 months before they actually buy. People actually buy the house, and we see the surge in interest in our audience numbers, in the leads, in the activity on the platform a few months before the actual festive season. Mm-hmm. The couple of weeks into the festive season actually are not very strong. It's interesting.
Oh, really?
Exactly the 2 weeks during Diwali and Pujo and stuff. The numbers are softer, but I think leading up to it is very, very strong. So I think we've seen a pretty good festive this time as well. There is every indication that even though the 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 pricing stability is sort of coming in a lot of markets. The demand continues to be strong. So we've seen a good festive, and we expect the overall demand to be sustained for next several months and quarters.
Oh, absolutely. That's a very encouraging sign, actually. Let's segue into something that you just mentioned. That the buying decision is actually a pretty long one. Uh, However, we have seen a very significant transformation over the last 15 years or so far as buying activity is concerned. Earlier, site visits were the first point of contact and the first point where people actually started thinking about buying a house. Now that seems to have moved completely online, and not just online, completely on a palm top on the mobile phone. Is it really the first impression? So is it, visiting a digital the impression, is it the first impact?
Yeah, so that's absolutely true, by the way, and that's not true for just home buying. I think not just in India, everywhere else in the world. I think you would see multiple verticals in which
Right.
a lot of your search and discovery process has moved online. The smartphone penetration, connectedness, etc., is almost 80, 90, 100% in most populations. In India also, that number is fairly high. So what we've seen in India, specifically in the prop tech space also, is that most people now end up searching and discovering online, and then zeroing in on a few apartments or whatever property specific, um, whatever property that they're sort of into, whether they're buying a house, a villa, or a apartment, and then going ultimately doing a site visit. The way we also think about our business, honestly, is 10 years ago, if you had to go and look at 15 or 20 houses to make a decision,
Right.
how can we cut it down to 3?
Right. Absolutely.
That's the real value, right?
yeah.
Like if I can get users to bring down the number of houses that they actually see from 15 to 3, that's the job and that's the value I've added, right?
Absolutely.
Because the amount of information, the trust, the accuracy, fidelity of the information you're able to provide in the platform, which encourages people to spend more time online,
Yeah.
and therefore shortlist the number of houses or apartments or villas or whatever have you, shortlist and make it like 3 or 4. That is the value we add both to the user, to the buyer, as well as to the seller.
Absolutely.
So what you're saying is absolutely true. Most people now do end up looking at online and spending a whole bunch of time on online search and discovery before they actually go and physically see an apartment.
Absolutely. You touched upon a very important keyword, which is trust.
Yeah.
And given that what is happening around the real estate industry, trust is a very, very significant factor now.
Yeah.
So far as the buying decision of a particular or investing in a particular project is concerned. And a home buying decision, as you just said, is not just a financial one, it's an emotional one, and more importantly now it has become a technological one. And when online presence is the first impression that is getting created, how do you build trust? So are people actually, prospective home buyers are actually looking for credibility badges or AI recommendations or reviews?
Yeah.
What are the kind of impact that this kind of factors are bringing into the buying decision?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, and I think it is. I would say it is one of the challenges we have to surmount in pretty much every vertical, and I can talk a little bit about how this is relevant and germane for property. What we have to do is to try and earn the trust of the buyer that
Right.
what you're seeing on the platform is
Right.
actually as true as it can be, and every year we are getting stronger. We introduce specific products, we introduce specific features which drive trust on the platform. I'll just give you one small example, and that is, like I said, one small example of the multiple things that we will do to drive trust. We encourage sellers to verify their houses, apartments, villas, what have you, their property. Once they've verified a property, we upweight this with a badge on our search algorithm. So if you upweight a verified property on your algorithm, there is a higher probability that a buyer is going to click on that property and
Right.
therefore drop a lead on that property, right? So we have to provide motivation for the seller to verify all the properties, and we do this for a lot of sellers ourselves as well. So there is a concept of self verification, but we also have a field force on the ground that helps some of our largest
Interesting.
sellers do it. And for the buyer, of course, a badged verified property means greater trust that this listing is actually
Right,
strong and
absolutely, yeah.
good, both in fidelity and completeness of information. And so as the number of verified listings keeps going up on the platform, as more and more sellers and buyers get used to the concept, the platform becomes more complete and more accurate. So,
Absolutely.
and this is not something that happens in a day or in a week, in a month, or even a few months. So this is a process that takes several quarters, and we are in the middle of that journey, and we are much farther than we were, let's say, just even 12 to 18 months ago.
Very interesting, because as a PropTech platform, you have taken on the responsibility also to, give as much as possible to the potential prospective customers, so far as credibility is concerned,
Absolutely.
and building trust. And you're bringing it as a sense of responsibility too, isn't it?
Absolutely. Look, like I said, the key goal is, how do you get somebody not to go and visit 15 houses to visit only 3? Now, if you're going to do that, then you got to provide as much information as trusted information, verified information, high fidelity information in order to, in order for you to achieve that goal. So yeah, and trust is, a pretty big parameter out there.
In real estate buying, particularly in residential properties, one of the common complaints that come from buyers, and all of us have gone through this phase, is that what you see is not what you get eventually, which is why we now see a lot of walkthroughs. Used to be a huge difference between what you see in video walkthroughs and what you eventually end up getting in a project that you may have invested in. That is why probably virtual reality and augmented reality seems to have filled that gap. And how is housing actually going about enhancing and bolstering the customer experience, so that there is very little gap between what they see and what they get?
Yeah, good question again. So I'd say you touched on a very interesting point. As we see the intersection of technology in PropTech, I think one of the things that we are invested in, and we think is going to make a big difference in our value proposition to buyers, is how closely, as you said, how closely can we approximate the reality of an apartment or a house online, right?
That's right, yes.
And therefore 3D visualization, like you put it, is actually a pretty interesting and a very important milestone. So we are working on 3D visualization products on the platform. We have it in some measure today, but that clearly is still baby steps. But it's very clear to us that this is an area we have to invest in, and it's an area we are investing in.
Right.
In fact, REA, the corporate group in Australia, we've invested in organizations, in startups that drive some of this, and we are going to. The Indian team is also sort of working with some of those to ensure that we are able to bring that value proposition to India. So if I have to pick up like 3 or 4 technology areas in which we are absolutely clear that we have to invest in to make sure that we approximate the real house to what you see online,
Yeah.
3D visualization will be one of those. And we've already taken baby steps towards it. And I think in the next few months and quarters, we will get to a stage where you see more and more of this on the platform. Therefore, doing what I just said is that how
Yeah.
can you reduce the number of houses, site visits from 15 to 3, right? So
Absolutely.
you've touched on the right chord, and that's one of the areas we're invested in.
One of the things that we see, and one of the most visible transformations in India now, is that the catching up of the tier 2 cities with the tier 1 cities. And yesterday's tier 2 is fast becoming today's tier 1. However, if you look at the prop tech space, as an outsider, one gets the impression that the prop tech industry continues to remain very heavily focused on tier 2, which is something that
Continues to be focused on tier 2.
tier 1,
Tier 1, okay.
continue to focus on tier 1, which is something that there seems to be a lag in the demand and what the prop tech industry is serving. And this is an outsider's view. What is it that you see from as an insider and someone who's running one of India's biggest prop tech companies of what's happening in tier 2 and how prop tech is actually expanding into tier 2, bringing in similar experience, because the growth in demand is far higher there than in tier 1.
Yeah. So actually, we are seeing tier 2 contributing very, very substantially to our overall audience size, by the way. So I think that we address mostly tier 1 is actually not true. If I were just to throw some numbers, I'd say broadly more than a third of our audience would today come from non-top 8 metros.
Oh, really?
So the fact that such large audiences are already coming from tier 2, means that it's not a tier 1 concept. It's not just a tier 1 concept, and it's growing well.
Yeah.
And it's growing fast and it's growing well. I would say, if you juxtapose this statistic and this number with the fact that we have seen fairly rapid infrastructure investment by the government in the last several years, the road infrastructure is much better, and the general infrastructure investment has been high, and we have seen rapid urbanization. So if you combine some of those macroeconomic developments, then it is natural for us to see that developers and builders are more likely to go in all of these places, and there is a lot of activity, and we are seeing pretty strong growth, like I said. So, and we expect to see continued growth. In fact, our outreach in the market as well will expand to cities that we haven't been so far in due course of time, and we'll make those announcements as time goes by. But we are moving in a direction where we cover more and more of India as time goes by.
Absolutely. Talking about macro developments, two big developments have taken place. One very recent, and it's a massive development, is on the GST rationalization, and the real estate sector is one of the beneficiaries. Certain things that needed being sorted seems to have got fixed, and interest rate has stabilized, because interest rate is one of the key determinants of any home buying decision. Given this and whatever the outlook is like, how do you think the sentiment is looking like? Do you think consumer sentiment is actually beginning to get more bullish, and do you see some more buying activity in the coming months and quarters?
Yeah, so good point. I think, look, the interest rate stabilization is always good from a business perspective. So when developers have to plan for the next several years, interest rate stability provides them with an opportunity to plan better and plan ahead of time. And I think this is generally a good step from the industry, and we do expect, because of this, there to be sustained demand over the next not just few quarters, but I'd say at a macro level, I think for the next couple of decades, prop tech is going to be interesting in India, right? For the reasons I mentioned earlier, rapid urbanization and investment in infrastructure, and a fairly good and benign interest rate policy environment. I would say the one thing that, at a policy level that interests me even more is the draft registration bill that was in the news recently. It is still early days to know exactly what the manifestations of that is going to be. But if we do move towards a direction in which we have more and more online registration, we have more and more information online to PropTech players and everybody else about the trends that we see on property registration, about the pricing, of different properties in different states and markets, I think that can open a whole lot of opportunities for the sector, because I think that, not having the right price for properties is one clear area where we are different from advanced markets. If you look at some of the leading prop tech players in the world, a lot of audience spends time on some of those prop tech portals simply
Yeah.
because they have very good visibility and transparency of exactly what are the price movements in different parts of a city or a state or an area. And I think if this is a harbinger in that direction, that will be very, very strong and very good for the industry.
And finally, something about housing.com, and related to is, of course, your own personal journey in leading this. PropTech and housing.com and PropTech, as you said, there are couple of things like integrity, credibility, technology, trust. All of these things to have, and of course, continuous innovation will have to take place because extremely dynamic. What is the kind of disruption that excites you the most, and where do you see it coming from, particularly in PropTech and housing? And I ask you this question because you also have to drive motivation because you are dealing with a sector which traditionally has been slow to change.
Yeah. So I think, look, technology. We are a technology company, and we look at innovation and technology to drive outcomes for us. At a very broad level, we expect to use more and more technology to help both our customers, which are sellers, as well as the consumers, who are the buyers, in making the decisions that they have to make on home purchase and house purchase. I'm with the advent of AI now, I think we are seeing AI practically in every aspect of our business. And we do expect that some of those things will be real disruptors in ensuring that there's more and more online participation from consumers in their buying journey. Some of the things we look at, like we talked about data visualization, 3D visualization, right? So 3D visualization is something that we are talking about today. It was hard to think about it 10 years ago, right? So I think that would be an area. I think search and discovery in natural language would be another very interesting area. Like today, if you go to any of the online prop tech portals, you have to put in a lot of filters before you actually get to search. So you got to say, yeah, I'm looking for a 3-bedroom, I'm looking for 3-bathroom, and stuff like that. And there are predefined filters. But as a consumer, you could say, hey, listen, I want to buy a house in South Gurgaon, which has 3 bedrooms. The condo has a tennis court, and it should be under 3 crores or whatever else, right? So you could give the variables that you are particular about,
Right.
and then you expect the technology companies to actually solve for it. So given all the content we have around the housing, can we throw up something to the user to a query which is very, very customized and bespoke, right? So we no longer are looking at sort of pigeonholing a user with some specific.
You are integrating smart prompting in many ways.
That's right. So I mean, that is something I would like to believe all prop tech players will ultimately get to a place where we are experimenting more and more with natural language processing search. It is something on the agenda. You will see it soon on housing.com, and I'm guessing that's the direction that we all have to take, because I think the user will have demands, and we are able to, with the help of technology, fulfill some of those demands. Like, what if you specifically need a puja room in the house, right? So how do you go about looking for that? Right, because you may have condos in which you may not have a puja room. So how do you, like, it's a difficult process for you if you have a very specific need.
Right.
So how do we capture specific needs of people, and how do we ensure that whatever they have in their mind, we are able to solve through the help of technology? So I said 3D visualization, natural language processing search, customer support, personalization of of output for consumers. I think these are some areas that are going to get a substantial leg up because of AI and our capabilities in AI and compute.
Absolutely. We're in the high noon of AI, and this will go, PropTech cannot be far behind. Thank you so much, Praveen. Thank you so much for sharing your deep insights and perspective on a range of issues. Thank you so much for taking the time out and dropping by.
Thank you, Gaurav. Thank you for having me.